Have you ever been accused of being a narcissist? Do you find yourself searching online, reading articles, and watching videos trying to find an answer? You're not alone. I have spent so much time reading and watching as well, looking for these answers. And in today's video, I'm going to share the main identifying signs of NPD, Narcissistic Personality Disorder, and how to know with reasonable certainty if you are in fact a narc or not. So let's get to it. Greetings and welcome to my channel, where I focus on how to recover from the trauma of toxic narcissistic relationships and ways to rebuild yourself in the wake of them. My name is Chris Gritty. I'm a certified cognitive behavioral therapist with over 35 years of personal experience with domestic abuse, primarily the types of abuse associated with NPD. I've made it my mission to help increase awareness of what I believe to be an extremely important issue, and that issue is increasing at a frightening rate. I also want to help and support others who have been abused or are still being abused. As a popular cartoon from my childhood was famous for saying, knowing is half the battle.
Now I know! And knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe!
But strip away all the brainwashing bits and the saying still holds up logically. Knowing is half the battle. Then what's the other half? Well, we'll get to that, but first things first. What does it actually mean to be a narcissist these days? It's a word that gets tossed around a lot in the media and online, so the actual meaning can seem hard to nail down. The term narcissist comes from the Greek myth of Narcissus, but if you want to learn more about the myth, that's an easy Google search away, and honestly, not really helpful when attempting to ascertain if you are a narcissist or not. I seriously doubt very many people on Earth would willingly identify with Narcissus in the story because he's an archetype, an exaggerated example to teach a cautionary tale.
Yes, the selfish man is like a mangy dog chasing a cautionary tale. So,
let's jump forward a couple thousand years and start at a much more helpful point in this process, the DSM, or Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. You know, come to think of it, shouldn't it be called the DSMMD? Okay, whatever. The DSM is the tool professionals used as their standard for diagnosing and treating mental disorders. First published in 1952, this manual has been updated over the years, leading to our current version, the DSM-5, which was published in 2013. And it's important to note that the definitions and distinctions between disorders are still being debated to this day, so I'm sure we can expect many more updates in the years to come. But for now, this is the best tool we have, so that's what I'm going to be referencing.
This is what? This is boring.
I know, this part can be boring, and our ADHD isn't interested in NPD, I know, but stick with me, because without a solid understanding of what it actually means to have NPD, there's really no way of having any certainty about recognizing it in anyone, especially yourself. However, I promise to try to streamline this part so we can get to the list of identifying traits and the NARC test before you get distracted by a cat video or, I don't know, hop over to TikTok, which is way more ADHD friendly for sure. Squirrel! Okay. So the 4 defining features of a personality disorder are distorted thinking patterns, problematic emotional responses, over or under-regulated impulse control, and interpersonal difficulties, Now, before any diagnosis can be made, a person must show significant and enduring difficulties in at least 2 of these 4 areas. Now that's pretty broad defining features, I know, which is why the different combinations have been organized into 10 specific personality disorders. The DSM splits them into 3 different groups called clusters, clusters A, B, and C. Cluster A, the odd, eccentric, and paranoid. Cluster B, the dramatic, emotional, and erratic. And cluster C, the anxious and fearful. Now, don't go trying to diagnose yourself already based on this information alone.
I'm a monster!
People come in all shapes and sizes, and often we have our own individual cocktail of issues, which is why it's so important to see a professional you trust. But we're here today to focus on one disorder in specific, Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD. I'm sure it will come as no surprise that NPD is a cluster B, the dramatic, emotional, erratic type. And there's 4 types in that cluster: antisocial, borderline, histrionic, and finally, narcissistic personality disorder. So at least now you understand where it fits into this grand scheme of personality disorders according to the experts in the field. Again, I cannot stress this enough. It is impossible to diagnose yourself with 100% accuracy. So this exercise we're about to do is not definitive, but it will give you a much clearer image of where you land, if at all, on the narcissism spectrum. If you want to know for sure, you need to seek out a mental professional. My knowledge comes mostly from experience, and while yes, I am a certified cognitive behavioral therapist, I'm not a doctor. All right? So, time to get your pen and paper. There are 9 different characteristics of NPD. To qualify as a card-carrying narc, you must display at least 5 of these characteristics at the same time and consistently. So, as we go through each characteristic, write down how it best describes you on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is not me at all and 5 is that's totally me. And at the end of the test, we'll go over where you seem to fit based on your score into the narcissistic spectrum. Now remember, if you're not completely honest with yourself, this won't work at all. And seriously, if you're here and you're serious about your mental health, it should go without saying that lying to yourself makes the whole process pointless. For that reason, I also suggest you find someone or a few people that you trust and that know you fairly well and ask them to go through this list and score you according to their perspective, if you really want a realistic answer. And yes, I have gone through this myself and asked a couple of my closest friends to score me on it as well, which I will share at the end of the video. All right, it's game time then.
I hate this game.
Number 1, arrogance and domineering. Do you force or coerce others to conform to your way of thinking with the assumption that you're doing them some kind of favor? Number 2, grandiosity. Do you believe yourself to be superior or better than most people? Number 3, preoccupation with success and power. Are your expectations of yourself so high that you are unwilling to ever accept the idea of failure? Number 4, lack of empathy. Do you find it tedious to be a shoulder to cry on or show emotional support to people who are suffering? Do you find it hard to care in situations that most people find emotionally difficult? Number 5, belief of being unique. Do you hold the belief that you are not just unique, but special in a way that isolates you from average people? Number 6, sense of entitlement. Do you think you're self-deserving of special treatment or privileges? Number 7, requires excessive admiration. Now this one is connected to the sense of entitlement. Do you require or think you deserve admiration for all the amazing things you do? Number 8, exploitative. Do you rate potential relationships based on what that person can do for you, like get discounts or facilitate professional advancement, or how much it'll increase your social image to others? Simply put, do you tend to only value people you can use for your own benefit? Number 9, envious of others. Do successful people make you jealous or envious since you feel you haven't reached the level of success you think you deserve? All right, so how'd you do? If you scored a 19 or lower, there's a good chance that you don't suffer from NPD. This doesn't mean that you're not an irritating person sometimes, or worse. But I mean, honestly, that is true for most everyone alive. If you scored between 20 and 29, then like the Magic 8-Ball likes to say, your outlook is unclear. Maybe you are, and maybe you aren't. But I do recommend seeking out a mental health professional in your area and try to get their opinion. If you scored a 30 or higher, then you might be a narcissist, and I highly recommend you get treatment ASAP, not just for your personal well-being, but for everyone's around you. And bonus note, if you scored 30 or higher and think that this test is BS and you don't need therapy, then you are almost certainly somewhere high on the NPD spectrum. And remember, this is not in any way a perfect test. If you are still uncertain, seek out the opinion of a mental health professional. If you think you're involved with somebody else with NPD, then keep researching until you feel certain. If you come to the conclusion that they are a narc, then it's time to begin planning your exit strategy, a topic I intend to make a whole video series about in the months to come, as well as ways to cope with an ongoing abusive relationship and how to start rebuilding yourself after it ends. As for me, personally, when I took this test myself, I got an 18. And my friends scored me at 13 and 14. So that's 45 divided by 3 average score of 15. Does that mean I'm a nice guy? No, just means I'm probably not a narc. Not all annoying, rude, or even toxic people have NPD. But at least now you know the basics. And like I said, knowing is half the battle. In fact, the other half is what you choose to do with that knowledge. So, if you're coming to the conclusion that you're living with somebody with NPD, the next step is to decide what to do. If you are being abused, then it's time to find a way out, like I did. I'll be sharing how I built my plan and the tools I used to survive, and much, much more in videos to come, so I hope you stick around in the standard YouTubian fashion. Thanks so much for your time. I'm Chris Gritty. Mahalo.